Okay, it's recording.
Thanks, John. Good evening, everyone. I will go ahead and call this meeting of the Riders Advisory Council to order on November 5th at 6:15 p.m. and ask John to please call the roll.
All right, Chair Stout.
Here.
Vice Chair Siddiqui. He was going to be out. Vice Chair Wei.
Here.
Solomon Chen.
Here.
Matthew Clark. Right. Eli Crivero Frankel.
Here.
Lucas Sabaski.
Here.
Alex Mendelson.
Here.
Brian Meyer.
Here.
Pat Sheehan.
Here.
Joseph Pope. Thomas Shepard.
Here.
Irene Stevens.
Here.
Hendy Tefesi.
Here.
Brandon Wu. Okay, I don't see him yet. Despite that, you have quorum.
All right. Thank you, John. Item number 2, it will be the approval of the agenda. I will move approval with the amendment that we add a new item 7, Annual Report Committee Chair election. Are there any objections to the approval of the agenda with that amendment? All right, our agenda is approved. I guess, John, I don't think we have any minutes to approve, do we?
We don't. I'm sorry. I'm way behind.
Okay.
But
November. Item number 4, public comments. Do we have any members of the public with us that would like to share their thoughts or comments with the RAC? All right.
I'm going to wait for Teddy.
All right. Thanks, Cal. All right. We will go ahead and move into item number 5, Metro Rail Service Disk Order. And we've got Jamie. Is that right?
Yes, hi, that's correct.
Hi, Jamie. Welcome.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you with us, and I will turn it over to you.
Should I share my screen or do you have the presentation?
Whichever is easier. Are you? If you're able to share, that's great.
Sure, I'm able to do it.
Okay.
Can everyone see this?
Yep. We can.
Yeah. Okay, great. Hi, I'm Jamie Ernst. I'm a project manager for wayfinding and service information at Metro. Thank you so much for having me. So one of the aspects of wayfinding and service information is we're looking to introduce consistency across our wayfinding system. And one part of that is the way that we represent Metro Rail service order. And you can see here the design challenge there is to create a logical, predictable order for displaying Metro Rail service. And the Metro Rail service order is displayed not only in physical infrastructure throughout the system, like on these pylons or on the system map. It's also a part of Metro merchandising and branding and also in our digital products. So that makes it more important that we're displaying some consistency and there's a logical order. So we have 3 different options for the way that we could display the Metro Rail service order. The first of which is the order that the lines opened, the first being red, the second being blue, and so on, with silver being the most recently opened line. The second option is matching the built world. So this is meant to mimic the physical station infrastructure. So for example, L'Enfant Plaza, The yellow and green lines are on the upper level with orange, blue, silver, and blue on the lower level. And so they would be represented this way in other aspects. And for Totten, for example, the red line is on the upper level, yellow, green are on the lower level. And the last option we're calling the parity proof option, with the introduction of single letter discs that can contribute to some problematic pairings. So we want to avoid things like SOB or BS. So this order ensures that doesn't happen. And additionally, it maintains the interlining grouping, meaning orange, silver, blue, and yellow, green remain together. So we'd like to get your input on those three options. Or other thoughts you may have, we've been kind of shopping this around internally so far. There is a preference that has risen to the top, but we're interested in hearing your feedback as well.
Thanks, Jamie. Could you maybe take a step back for us and set the why are we talking about it? Like, is it a challenge we've seen that writers have shared, or and is it different in different stations? I think just kind of like take us to the 30,000-foot view of like, why is this a focus for you?
Sure. I mean, a vital part of customer experience is having a recognizable brand and consistency across the system. And we've noticed that throughout the system, it is not consistent. Things are represented different ways on the pylons, on the system map, on some of our merchandise. So we just want to streamline that to make it a more accessible experience for all of our users.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I think that's great. And I'll go to William next.
Hi, Jamie. Is there any, I'm not sure if it exists, is there any international protocol or standard in transit industry on how these things go? I assume not, but just wanted to check, had a chance to use transit recently in Tokyo and Bangkok. And so, they had perfect English announcers, but I don't recall the color scheme or the signage, but wanted to see, what your thoughts are on that.
So not that I'm aware of, that is something that I can look into. We do have standards, obviously, for accessibility and in terms of contrast, but in terms of color order, to my knowledge, that does not exist in terms of an international standard.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, William. Solomon.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Jamie. I think for me personally, B is probably the most preferred. I think it makes the most sense in terms of how I personally experience the metro, in terms of going up the different levels, especially at the stations that have multiple connecting lines. And I think A, in my opinion, has too many layers, so it's kind of hard and gets really jumbled. And I understand C. It's a little bit amusing to me, honestly, but I feel like C is almost sort of a worse version of B in my mind. So that's just my opinion.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Solomon. I think I would agree that B is my preference. Just the subconsciousness of seeing the layers. I think for us as regular users of the transit system, I think we wouldn't necessarily struggle, but you think about first-time users or visitors, kind of establishing that, matching the built world and all of the hard materials, I think is useful. And I'll go to Thomas.
Yeah, thank you for giving this presentation, first of all. I would also agree that B is I feel like the most intuitive option. I was just curious, how soon is Metro planning to once they decide on an order, how soon is this going to be implemented system wide? Because I know like especially in recent years, like a lot of the design and of like the wayfinding has like changed a ton, especially, you know, we're going from the single letter, indicators to the but we're going to the single letter indicators from the 2-letter ones, and then in like a lot of the major stations, a lot of the wayfinding has changed significantly, and also the pylons. So I was just curious, like how soon would this like be implemented system wide?
So we are still trying to gain consensus internally and with external stakeholders. We talked to the Accessibility Advisory Committee a few weeks ago. So once we gain internal consensus and that is approved, it would be like many other wayfinding aspects in the system be rolled out like in a phased approach, because as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, there are so many products that this touches. So not only the physical infrastructure, but digital and like merchandising. So we would probably start with like the lowest hanging fruit and then move on to like when we're working on a station already for other improvements, it would be an opportunity to introduce this. So it would be working in a phased approach.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Then we'll go to Alex.
Thank you again for the presentation. I just wanted to ask, so I assume this will be kind of rolled out like in basically every aspect, right? Like the way the colors are on the pylons, the order of the discs on the maps, the like even on the bus transfers when it displays the order of the lines. Is that like generally correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And what is the I'm just curious if there's like a rationale for the ordering of like yellow over green or orange over silver over blue in option B. Like I'm just curious if there is one, or if there's not, that's also totally fine.
So the order for orange, silver, and blue, it's to prevent those like problematic pairings as we mentioned before.
Yeah.
So we don't want BS or SOB, and that was the combination that worked the best there. And yellow green, the yellow line, that's sort of mimicking part of option A, where the yellow line was the first to open.
All right, sounds good. I'll say that I think I also prefer option B, just because I feel like as someone who's maybe entering Metro Center, Gallery Place, or L'Enfant, just seeing the order of them stacked matching the actual order of how you would experience them would probably be helpful. So
Great,
thank you.
thank you. Oh yeah, thank you.
And Lucas.
Yeah, so is it true that currently right now at any multi-line station it is in the order of depth, like option B on the pylons outside?
I can look into that for you. I can't speak to every single transfer station.
No, I think from the ones I frequent, I do think that it is currently on the pylons in that order. And I would say my probably only caveat would be, regardless of which option you move forward with, I still think on the pylons, like say Gallery Place, for example, red is on the highest level and green and yellow are below. I think keeping that uniform would be an important aspect, even if you went for a different order like A or C for like branding or merchandise stuff. I just think that makes a lot of sense for folks. And I think if that's currently kind of how it is now, and that's kind of like maybe like a hidden secret that folks could use for better wayfinding, I think that would be important to keep it that way, regardless of which way you go.
Yeah, and yes, that's a very good point. And even in all three options we mentioned here, we do always have red as at the top level.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you.
Yes, that's a good point. Thank you.
I'm curious to the group. Does anyone prefer an option other than B? And I'm assuming no one. So I'm curious, Jamie, if you can share what you think what the consensus was. Yeah, I know you didn't want to taint our thoughts, but I'm curious what the consensus internally is.
The internal consensus, loosely with what we've done so far, it was also B.
That's good. It's been probably a little bit of a challenge for you if we all came in and picked A or C.
But we're still workshopping this. There hasn't been an internal consensus, and this is just very like loose initial surveying that we've done. But all of this impact is important and will contribute to our final decision.
Awesome. Anyone have any other questions, thoughts, or feedback for Jamie? Yeah, Cal.
Just curious if you run this through tests with partially and fully colorblind folks. The colors?
That is something we can look into. Certainly, that is a very good suggestion.
Yeah, I was trying to change my computer to black and white, but I can't seem to figure out how to do it on this new computer. But some of those colors are so close to each other in shade that they may not be differentiable.
Yes, that's a good suggestion. Thank you.
I mean, that's a really big change to change the colors themselves. So I understand that.
Hey, Jamie, this is Teddy coming in. I just want to say to that last point, one of the reasons why we have moved from the single letter disc to the two, or sorry, from the two to the one, is that it makes it easier to be able to distinguish the actual letters, the characters inside. It gives you more space to make them large. So it will be a R inside of that red disc. It will be a B inside of the B, and it'll be large and easy to read. So there will be additional clues in addition to the color itself.
Thanks, Teddy.
So thank you, Teddy.
Pat.
Yes, I was just going to say pretty much the same thing. Having gone through this presentation a couple weeks ago, folks in my committee that have low vision were very pleased in consensus with exactly what the RAC is saying. So from a low vision point of view, the arrangement that that you said you liked is very similar to what we're saying too. And also they are looking at the color contrast and the labels beside to make sure that folks with low vision will be able to read them effectively on the signage part. So I've got a good group working on that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Pat. And thank you, Jamie, for coming in and bringing this to us and giving our feedback. You're welcome back anytime. But unless anyone else in the RAC has something to share, I think we'll move to our next item.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Jamie. All right. Teddy is here to talk with us to revisit the permanent bus stop flag. For those who were with us in person, was it our last in person? Or
It was in July.
July.
Yeah, in July. To talk about what the bus flags will look like moving forward and some of the options before us. So I'll turn it over to you, Teddy.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Cole. I just want to say this is another example of why it's so great to be able to come to this group at multiple points during a project and even before a project, which is really what July was about. It was anticipating that we were going to be working on this project, and we wanted to make sure that we were informed by real customer perspective. So what's exciting about today is to be able to come back again at an early stage. This is really a conceptual stage of this project, but to be able to show you the progress that we've made. And Jamie and I are here on behalf of Sarah and the entire CX team. And again, we really do value coming to, obviously, to this group, as Patrick was saying as well, to the AAC. And these are important milestones for all of our projects. So just want to say that again, we really enjoy coming here. Everybody can see my screen okay?
Yep.
Okay, so our goal is to make the most accessible bus flag in North America. And by that, we really think that we're making the best flag in America. We have gotten to talk to so many different groups. We talked a little bit last time in July about some of the precedents and some of the examples from around the world that we were looking at. So we really have talked with our Canadian neighbors. We've talked with many of the biggest cities in America that have done recently, redesigned bus flag projects. And we feel really good about the number of folks across this agency, both in terms of our, again, advisory councils like this, but also with our internal bus operations team, with our accessibility teams, with our engineering teams, our facilities teams, to think about what's important to, again, all of the stakeholders here at Metro and how we can make sure that we're bringing together rail, bus, all the services as part of this bus flag project. I mentioned before, we did a lot of research. Right now, we have entered into the prototyping phase. That means that we actually do have physical prototypes that if we were meeting in person, I'd show you. And I hope that we're going to be able to arrange a time for this group to check them out in person. We're doing a similar type of event with the AAC. Actually, tomorrow night, I'm going to be out with our bus operations partners, checking out how these flags perform in low light conditions. After we get through a few, again, we're going to call this a concept prototype today. Once we get through that and we get some, again, good internal alignment with this group, with all the other stakeholders to make sure that we're moving in the right direction, then we're going to get into the more detailed engineering phase where, again, it's really going to be looking at the precise measurements, making sure this is something that's going to work at thousands of locations across the region, and then finally get into implementation. We're going to talk about, again, what's going to go into each of those phases as part of this project. But I just want to, again, remind folks where we are today. This is still very early. I really want you guys to be focused on the features. Are we providing the things that you guys are interested in, that you think are important for you and for other customers? And if not, let's talk about it, because this is a chance for us, again, to still make changes. So as I said before, we did a lot of work to make sure that we were talking with people who, again, are closest to this kind of effort. So we actually went to the bus divisions and we really did survey almost 300 operators about a very specific question, which was, how often do your bus mirrors strike the bus flag? And what can we do to make sure that we reduce that incidence going forward? We also talked, again, more than 1,000 customers through the transit app, and that was really trying to make a representative sample of frequent, non-frequent, and even non-English speaking users so that we could understand what are the elements that people are looking for at a bus stop. As I said before, we talked with you guys, we talked with the AAC, we talked with every group that we could find across the metro to hear their perspective. What are the things that they like about the current bus flag? What are things they'd like to see different? And those have been very important in terms of guiding this future work. And as I mentioned before as well, we really did talk to the leading agencies. We went to Montreal, talked with Ottawa, talked with Toronto, talked with Chicago, Philadelphia, Boston, you name it. Any group that's done some significant redesign of their flag recently, we really tried to reach out. And this is a real benefit of working at Metro, is that we have a benchmarking team that connects us with our peers. When we have questions, there was a question before about what is the industry practice, for example, showing service rail icons. In this case, we really could, working with our internal benchmarking team, find out who are the right people to connect with and then arrange for conversations. That's a really great thing that Metro provides. So what do you think bus operators care about? Making sure that they can see the flag. And one of the real concerns about the Better Bus flag was that as part of the design, and we talked with this group about how we redesigned portions of the vinyl and what the information was on top of the sign, but the aluminum actual blank was still untouched. The actual shape of the sign remained the same. One of the concerns was that we actually did cover up a portion of the sign that had reflective material with a vinyl overlay. We still had reflective material on the bulb, kind of on the left-hand column of the bus flag, but we had overall reduced it. We knew that that was something that we need to improve in future versions. We also talked with customers through that transit app survey and got really clear, basically, responses on what people care about, what they want to see. And these have, as I said before, also guided every decision that we've tried to make. So you can see here, route ID, destination, which is a new feature for the Better Bus flags, but we got such great response from you as well as from others that was very important. Operating agencies, so again, that's like Metrobus, or in the case of potentially a regional flag, being able to show Fairfax Connector, Dash, whoever it might be. And then the bus stop ID, which is important for folks who are trying to locate themselves, talking to a customer care representative. It can be useful for getting real-time information. So these are the elements that we've really tried to emphasize. As I mentioned before, we've got some great precedents with Better Bus. There are some things that worked really well. We talked with this group about what that supersized font would look like on a single route stop. Here, we've taken that and we've expanded it to also include double routes. And you'll see that we also even have plans for 3, 4, and beyond. We've also increased the reflectivity, like I mentioned. We've made the potential logos that we'd be able to show for partner agencies if we're able to provide, again, multiple agencies on the same flag at the same time. This is a goal that DMV Moves has proposed. It's something that we're trying to see if there's going to be interest in adopting this. We'd be able to simultaneously show Metro, PGC Transit, whoever would be able to work with us on this project, and we wouldn't have such a cluttered bus flag as a result. The brand here is significant. For a long time, Metro Rail and Metro Bus have different colors, have different styles, making it seem like you're not actually on the same service. One of the goals of this bus flag project is to try to improve the consistency and unify those services. If you'd like to talk about the actual construction and the materials, we do have some preliminary ideas, but again, that's something that really we're going to be working on in the future, as well as, again, figuring out exactly how this is going to be funded, how we're going to be able to make sure that our materials and our labor, that we've got a good sense of how that's going to work, because this is a major project. It likely isn't going to be something that is going to be done immediately like Better Bus. It's going to be more in phases, but we have to be responsible in how we plan out this program. So in the next few slides, I'm going to go into this design in detail. First part to understand is that this is really a two-part system. So on the left, and by that I really mean the inside, kind of the side that's closest to the street, we're focused on what operators need. They need visibility. They need to be able to find the bus stop quickly. They need to be able to see it in all lighted conditions. They need to be able to pick it out, again, across trees or other kind of visual, we'll call them barriers. And this is what we've heard time and time again from operators. On the right side, we're showing what, again, we've heard is the most important from our customers. So those four elements that I mentioned from the survey, you've got here a very large route ID, you've got large terminal destinations, you've got a phone number, you've got the stop ID, and we're able to do it with certain materials, as here we're talking about this kind of anti-glare finish, so that you've got, again, the reflective kind of glare-prone side on the left separate from what you need on the kind of readability side on the right. Because one of the things that we've learned is that if you actually were to put everything in a maximum reflectivity setting, it would actually be impossible to read. And so that's why, again, we've made the reflective side so important to our operators and to many of our customers on the left, and on the right side are showing what we think is most important for people trying to distinguish different buses, operators, choices in terms of how they're getting around. Here I'm showing two possible colors. I don't want to get too hung up on the colors. These are just to kind of give a sense of how we might be able to get unified this Metro Rail and Metro Bus brands. I think what's really important for this discussion is to think about this as a features, I guess a features discussion. Are we providing the information in the right context? Are we providing the right information just to begin with that you guys are looking for? That being said, we are going to figure out, again, what are the colors that make sense from a color contrast perspective, from a branding perspective, from a customer perspective. Those are things that are going to continue to be discussed as we get into this project. Here I'm showing not only how a 1 or 2 route sign could look, but also thinking about all the other variety of contexts that we do have buses operating in. Now you'll see that in the far left example, we're estimating that about 83% of all stops, that includes Metro and, again, shared stops with other providers, only serve 1 to 2 routes. And so for that, we're proposing this somewhat smaller design. It's an 18 by 30 inch. Again, these exact dimensions are still to be, let's say, confirmed, but this is where we're starting, and this is the dimensions that we've created for our initial prototypes. As we get higher up in terms of 3 to 4 routes and 5+, we're able to maintain large type even in the 5+ routes. When we show 2-inch type, that's as large as the current Better Bus more than 1 route stops. So it's actually just as good as what we're showing right now, and we're able to maintain it across more routes. In the 3 to 4 route version here in the middle, you can see that we have lengthened it. So it's the same width as the smaller sign. It's 18 inches wide, but it's slightly longer. It's 45 inches long. And again, it's able to maintain that 4-inch type. Now I'm going to go into each of the features in detail. We've already covered a bit, but I wanted to emphasize what it means to make a truly accessible sign. Here, by, again, doubling that font size, we have also increased the viewing distance. This is really apparent when you look at these flags in person. When we put them up next to the existing Better Bus flags, it is so clear which one is easier to see at a distance. And that's really exciting, both, again, during day and at night. We've also improved the contrast. in terms of not using that red background. So again, using whether it's white, whether it's cream, whether it's that bronze color, having that stronger contrast makes a big difference for people with visual impairments. We had a great meeting yesterday with our colleagues in the system-wide accessibility group. They're really excited about this. And one thing that I think has been really interesting to talk about with, again, system-wide accessibility is reducing that cognitive load. So by stripping out all the extraneous information, really focusing on those 4 key elements, we make it easier for people to understand what it is that we're trying to present. One of the goals of this project is eventually, not necessarily immediately, but eventually to be able to provide the entire region's bus service on one unified flag. That would mean one stop ID. That'd be one potential call center that would at least be able to provide connections to each of the different respective agencies call, let's say, customer care centers, but at least you'd be funneled through one number. You wouldn't have to sort through multiple stop IDs, multiple contact numbers at the same bus stop. This is going to be obviously more important at locations where there's a whole bunch of different operators at the same location. We have, again, an estimate that is about 1,500 places across the region. If you think about it, there's about 8,500 total Metro bus stops. So it is a significant portion of the overall service area. And here we've made larger, brighter, more clear logo, I guess we'll call positions for the different providers to be able to advertise, again, that their service is available here. These are things that, again, we're going to be continuing to talk with partners about. These are things that we are making proposals for, but still need to confirm, make sure that these are working for, again, the folks that we're trying to serve. And this is something that we'd also like to be able to test with customers. Brand unity, we've already covered a little bit in terms of how we can make sure that the type, the color, the logos are consistent so that you feel like you're still, again, on Metro, whether you're on bus or on rail. You can see here, we've shown a pylon, we've taken out the service order, but that's okay. This is just for positioning here, that you can see the comparison between what we're proposing with the bus and with the rail. Reflectivity is probably the most important thing from an internal operations perspective. Here we're showing some ideas that we have for using some higher grade reflective beacons so that they'd be able to catch headlights in a better way. We're also increasing the area that headlights would be able to actually, I guess, cover. So you'd be able to have a larger space that would be reflective. And as I mentioned before, we're actually positioning them in such a way that they're out of the mirror strike hazard zone. Finally, I want to show this is an example of what our current prototypes, and again, these are just early concepts, look like actually outside of L'Enfant. Here on the left, you can see on the far left, we've got a monumental bronze background. On the far right, we've got the cream background. This is a real actual bus stop number and a real set of routes showing some different ideas for how we can show partners. You can see on the left, there's an example where we just show a single, we'll call it partner beacon. And then on the right, we're actually showing it inside of the flag itself, where you can see the PG Transit logo. And these are, again, different ways of conveying the same information, but we're testing that out in this conceptual phase right now. On the right side, you can see what these same flags potentially would look like in dark conditions. One of the interesting things that we were not expecting when we were playing around with adding different pieces of reflective material is that if we do reinforce, as you can see on the C40, on the right side of the cream colored prototype in the left picture, there's actually an additional white reflective stripe that we placed. That's what's making the effect in the right side of the picture, where you can see you've got the PGC Transit and the Metro there. We're playing around with, again, putting reflective materials not only at the height of the actual beacon, but even potentially a little bit lower on the post. So in conditions where there's trees or other kind of places where it's difficult to actually see the top, you can see from a distance lower on the actual post that this is a bus stop. And again, we're trying to anticipate what it's like from an operator perspective in perhaps a low light condition so that they know where to come and find passengers. So that is where we're at right now. We have, again, some early stage prototypes. We are testing them out, seeing how they work, but we're also gathering feedback from internal teams and from advisory councils like yourself. So with that, I would love to talk with this group about what you like, what you'd like us to explore, what you think is working, what you think maybe could be better, and we have some time for discussion. So thanks, everybody. We're here to talk. Oh, would you like me to call on folks, or how would you like to handle it?
I'll just go down the list and go
Okay.
to Solomon first.
Hey Teddy, thanks. This is really, really awesome to see. Just want to have a couple notes and a couple comments. First, I really appreciate that the numbers now changed to a full numeric number. I think in July we had seen it, and it had, I think, the letter metro or the alphabet kind of notation. I think that was pretty confusing, so it was really cool to see that. I think also looking at the different logo placements, I think it's easier to read when the logo placement is kind of in this example underneath the metro sign. I think the small text is a little bit hard, and that's the logo is primarily what I think consumers will be looking for first. And then once you see that logo, then you're able to kind of get closer to the sign to see if that's the right stop. So I think that's what I would prefer personally. And then I think you mentioned you were going to discuss sort of materials and costs. So I'd be curious how some of those discussions are. Obviously, the goal is to get the best visibility and the best materials, but it sort of reminds me of when I wear glasses, and so there's multiple different options for lenses, and sure, like, the highest quality is going to be the most expensive, but also gauging, how much clearer, how much brighter is so important to do risk losing sort of the marginal return for the cost. So would be curious on that point about some of the materials and some of that discussion.
Yeah, thank you for the points, and you're absolutely right. We talked about that number, the 202 Go Metro number in July. We talked about potentially what's the value of that in cardinal directions. We talked about even service frequency questions. So I hope you do see that we actually really have incorporated elements of that discussion. In terms of what's actually on the sign going forward, again, there's a lot still to figure out in terms of what service information makes sense. We're proposing here, as you can see, the most streamlined version, so kind of the simplest one. We think there's a lot of merit to that, but I imagine there's going to be many more discussions about that. To your question about materials and costs, we're really, again, not at a place where we're able to make any sort of real clear estimates, because we need to make sure that, again, this is viable on kind of like a structural level before we can actually figure out what the specific pieces are going to entail. I will say that we are thinking about, again, lots of elements, whether it's the number of years that we expect a flag to last, what we want the replacement cycles to look like, how it's going to work when, for example, there's a service change. What are going to be the techniques for updating it? Are we going to be replacing it fully? Are we going to be just taking it back in and then doing a refresh? So those are questions that we are working on. And when, again, we've got a really good proposal and plan together, we'll be sharing with folks, but we are absolutely thinking about the nuts and bolts of how this kind of program would work, and especially as we're thinking about how we might be able to talk with partners about this.
Awesome. Eli.
Thank you. So first of all, I think this is really cool. I love the uniformity with the Metro Rail pillars and the color scheme. I think it looks very clean, modern, and professional. Two things. This might not be the best question for you or best feedback for you, but looking at here and I'm seeing the word transit, I'm not thinking of the bus or PG Transit. It's impossible to see the Prince George's on that logo, and I recognize that's not your logo, so maybe not the best feedback for y'all. But also just on the partner organizations, on the one on the left here for the daytime, I do like being able to see the different partner organizations, but it's also if you're thinking about some people who are maybe taking certain buses for cost reasons. I know PG Transit and Ride On both are now fare free. It might be harder for them to distinguish which line that they are actually trying to seek out. So might just be interesting to see how you can kind of like connect those better to the agency.
Thanks. That's a great point. And we really are thinking about that kind of question because you can imagine a situation where, for example, there were, let's say, 3 routes at this stop, and the partner beacons don't quite line up exactly with the actual routes. Is that a feature or is that a bug? And that it's able to show you at a glance very clearly Metro, PG Transit, perhaps another operator are at this stop, but which operator is actually responsible for which route? It's one of the questions that we'd like to do some further testing on to understand how important that is for customers to know that the C41 is operated by a specific operator as opposed to just knowing that the C41 stops here and then being able to find it by the head sign or any other clues. So those are really good points. And I think that our goal would be to work with partners to make sure that we're presenting them in the best light possible and being able to show their logo, their service in the clearest way.
Thank you, Thomas.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for this presentation. I really like a lot of elements of the new designs, especially just like how much like I guess clearer is to see the routes listed. I just had a couple maybe I guess like suggestions. I don't know if they would be like good or not, but so first of all, I think maybe it would be nicer to have the little like the extra like flaps showing the operator or like the transit agency to be like a little more like lined up with the like the numbers because I feel like someone could easily like misread this and like assume that the P43 was going to be like a metro bus and like be confused when it's not. And yeah, so I don't know, maybe make like the flap a little bigger, maybe like line it up a little bit more, or make like the line between the like bus routes from 2 different operators like a little more defined. And then I guess the next thing, I know you discussed like trying to like only like put the necessary information on there, but I wonder if it would be like useful for some routes to at least like put like, oh, this route runs like 24 hours or it's like a every 12 minutes like frequent bus. Because I feel like that's could be important information people could use. Or if like not that, because there's already like the phone number in there, and I don't know how many people would be like calling that, but maybe just like a URL to like download like Metro Pulse or something, or I don't know, a QR code. Yeah, but those were just some suggestions. I don't know if they would be helpful or not, but yeah.
Those are all great ideas, and honestly, those are all ones that we're discussing. So you are not off, and I think that this is what this stage is for: is to show something and then revise it, make it better, listen to folks. So I'm taking notes.
Alex.
All right. Thank you so much for this presentation. I really like how the signs are coming along, and I'll just kind of touch on a few points that I've been writing down. I really agree with Thomas on I think it's important for customers to know which operator is providing which route service, just for the reason that like if you're at the stop and maybe there's some like detour information or some other alert, like you might want to be able to know the right website to go to. Like it could be WMATA, it could be Arlington Transit, it could be PG County. So I definitely want to make sure it's clear that like the customer knows which route is being operated by which provider. And I think you could accomplish this in like there's like a many good ways to do this. You could definitely like I think lining up the operator panels that are on the I guess left or the side that's not with the route information, just to match that line that is on the side between the routes. Or maybe just do both of the um versions on the daytime slide where it shows both the metro and transit operator beacons, but also shows transit above the P43. So it's just like that redundancy probably would, in my mind, at least solidify it for customers. I also agree that some sort of website information might be nice to have somewhere. Whether that be just like wamada.com thrown on the sign, like above or below the customer service number, or maybe there could be like a tiny little panel that's more at like customer eye level, so you could just scan a QR code with your phone. Like it'd be just a little tiny placard that like gets attached to the signpost like further down. And one other thing I thought of too is if it's like clear that the number on the stop is for customer service, like maybe just write like customer service number above it. Might make it a little more clear. I don't know if that's a widespread issue, just something that came to mind. But thank you so much for the presentation. I'm really enjoying see how these are going along.
Yeah, again, those are really, really great points. And I can tell you, actively working on each of those, including potentially thinking about what an eye-level panel could look like. So we're thinking about that. One question I do want to pose to the group is we were just talking about, you just mentioned the potential utility of a URL. We did not include a URL on this in part because it wasn't one of the top elements that we found from the survey, but I think also because we, based on talking with you and with others, are making not an argument necessarily, but our comprehension, our understanding of the situation is that for people who are comfortable with URLs, who are comfortable with MetroPulse, they kind of know already how to find it. Whereas people who are not comfortable with mobile phones and other things like that need that phone number because that connects them to a person who can help them. And again, we're providing that stop ID so they can locate it. So we're kind of doing a little bit of, we'll call it segmentation, where we're trying to think about, for again, a person who is technologically savvy, what is the information that's most important and what's the information they don't really need at the stop? And then as well, what do we need to provide to make sure that we're serving all of our customers? So for folks on this group who represent, again, variety of backgrounds, variety of uses, would you say that seeing a URL would help you find information that you wouldn't have just Googled or perhaps found in another fashion? This is an open question for the group and one that we're interested in hearing from you about.
I'll give Brian first chance to answer that since his hand was already up.
I mean, personally for me, no, but that's because I think even things like Google Maps do a fantastic job, at least serving my needs in terms of accuracy as well as the MetroPulse. I think my question / comment, and this is more so out of curiosity, is were the surveys or the work done by receiving feedback from riders and operators, did it indicate any difference in terms of needs for bus stops that are, quote, like out in the field versus at bus bays and transfer stations? Because I know, oftentimes I live in Virginia, so just like Ballston or East Falls Church or Roslyn, sometimes I find the importance of wayfinding what bus stop I'm supposed to be at. It's different than if I'm just somewhere off of Glebe or Washington or something like that. Did that come up in terms of difference? Not that I'm trying to introduce an added level of complexity and making sure, oh, there's bus signs that are different throughout the system, but they are very different spaces where information needs to be communicated in a unique manner sometimes. I'm just curious.
It's a terrific question. To answer it, the surveys themselves were focused on, we'll call them kind of street bus stops. However, we absolutely are thinking about how does this work in a variety of environments, including transit centers, whether that's Silver Spring, whether it's Tacoma, whether it's the Pentagon. How would this translate in those environments? Because again, we're really aiming to make a more consistent experience so that it feels like, again, you're actually on Metro bus at each of these different places, even when they're these very different kind of environments. So we're not showing, again, what we're thinking yet for those transit centers, but that would be a very important part of the overall initiative. So yes.
Yeah, and to elaborate off of that, I think the things that come to my mind are communicating in some way, shape, or form which bus bay it is, And again, I don't know if that goes on the sign or anything. And I know that the fact that at these transfer stations, the likelihood that you're sharing that spot with a different transit provider, or at least in the direct vicinity of another transit provider, probably increases significantly. And along those lines where, you know, kind of traditional streets, presumably the bus stops are on opposite side, one going east, west, north, south. At some of these transfer stations or metro stations with bus operations nearby, they're sometimes just in like a loop format, and you can have there's no rhyme or reason why one is going south, one is going north. Sometimes it's just one's here and one's over there. So those are just some additional things to think about in terms of kind of the difference between the traditional street bus signs and the ones you'd find at kind of transfer stations and things of that nature.
Again, those
Thanks.
are really, really excellent points. And I would add to them that at those transfer locations, it's also more likely that there might be additional features at the bus stop. So for example, perhaps an e-paper screen that shows real-time bus arrivals. There could be, again, other pieces, again, in the shelter. And so making sure that together those are orienting people to the information that they need is going to be very important. And as you can see here, we're showing kind of the simplest arrangement. There's other situations where, again, there's solar panels, there's e-ink stuff, there's detour notices. We need to be able to show how our system would work using all of those different elements, because that's what real life is.
Thank you, Lucas.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a little feedback overall and a little bit on the phone number section. So I think the way these new ones look, I do like the how it's formatted a lot better. I think the simplicity will help a lot of people when they're trying to commute over to their bus stop, or maybe one they're not familiar with. I think in terms of like anything in terms of a website or a link like that, I don't think that's necessary per se, because I know that like my certain neighbors who would use the phone number here, they wouldn't have access to a smartphone. And I think people that would already would know the website or the app of their choice to go to. I do think maybe differentiating maybe just a little symbol or icon, or maybe even a light border around the actual phone number itself could be helpful. Because if you're maybe a newcomer looking at that, it almost looks a little jumbled for some folks, especially with the stop ID and the phone number being about the same size. So I think maybe just something to call that out, maybe make it a little quicker for folks to recognize where the phone number is in terms of that. And then I think maybe the only other feedback would be looking at each of the two signs. I definitely think the one on the left here is easier to differentiate in terms of which service you're taking. I think maybe if you wanted to help folks a little more, instead of adding more to the sign, maybe separate that Metro flag from the PG Transit flag a little more, just so it's in alignment with the route that it corresponds with.
Thank you. That's really, really great. Thank you.
I think for me too, I agree a lot with what Thomas was saying, is separating out that P43. If you could drop that down like a couple inches to really differentiate its different service, I think I agree that having the different logos is really helpful. But like separating it out, because in all fairness, I didn't realize that the P43 wasn't a WMATA route when I first looked at this. I was confused, like, why is that transit thing there? And I'm a fairly pretty informed person, and agree with the URL too. I also don't know what URL you would use now. At first, you had the bus ETA where you could go plug in your stop ID, and that was easy to do. But bus ETA is not going to exist anymore, and so I don't see a good use for a URL that's not going to take you directly to the resource to serve you. The only thing you can do is like download the Metro Pulse app, which is not, I don't think, helpful. on that front. And the only other, like maybe one addition is what I do like about the current flags that are in the system is the 24-hour route ones have that 24-hour symbol. I think that's a really useful thing to have, especially on those high frequency routes where it's operating. That way, you can come back to here to find a bus if you need to move somewhere. I think I don't see a value in doing some that's like a rush hour only or frequency, but just knowing that this service runs 24 hours a day. And if you wait there, a bus will come, I think is really useful to have. And I'll go to Alex and then to Cal. Unless Teddy, you wanted to say something in the middle of there.
No, those are excellent points, and we're thinking about the same questions because you're absolutely right on Better Bus. We did show 24-hour icon for certain DC 24-hour routes, and I think that going forward, thinking about this from a kind of bus planning perspective, what are the service level commitments that we feel comfortable presenting to the public? What does the public think is actually a frequent route versus perhaps what we're advertising? Those are questions that we want to make sure that we have good answers to. And for a variety of reasons, 24 hours made sense for BBNR. And maybe that's something that, again, should be included going forward too.
Just to answer and just kind of go contribute to the group discussion, I think it's fine if we don't have the link to the website. I mean, I personally don't use it. I just think it absolutely needs to be clear what operators providing which service, because then you could just go on Google and you type Arlington Transit or you'll type WMATA and it'll be easier to figure out the information from there. And definitely agree on the comment on providing bus bay information. I think one thing that's frustrating at transit stations, whether that's like Ballston Metro or Seven Corners or Fort Totten, is the way the bus bays are, like the way you can actually tell which bus bay is which is super inconsistent. Sometimes it's like on one side of the shelter, sometimes it doesn't exist at all. Sometimes it's like maybe on top of the sign flag, it's like just taped on or somewhere else on that pole. And I think it'd be great if we could just make a consistent system for that. Just like very bold, Bay A, Bay
Yep.
B, Bay C. So yeah, that's all I got. Thank you.
Those are very much in our plans.
And Cal.
So I have a couple of questions and then a bunch of comments. I sent you a bunch of feedback after your July visit. Did you get that, Teddy? It was near the end of August.
Um,
And then I followed it up a few weeks later with, did you get it?
that sounds like I probably didn't get it.
So I might not have your email address correctly because there's no number in your email address.
That's correct. No number.
Okay.
I'm happy to give you my email though. I can put it into the chat.
Okay, great. You mentioned I heard sort of an equivocation about including other agencies than Metro Bus and PG. You said if we can. Where are you with that?
I think that's right. We are working right now on this kind of regional approach to funding sustainability, and there's a lot of initiatives in that are looking to create greater collaboration and coordination between different agencies. This is one opportunity to do that, and so we're looking at ways that we can again create efficiencies, create a better customer experience, but that's going to require working together, and we need to show that we're creating a great product and that we have a good plan, and that's going to be something that other agencies are going to respond to. And so certainly I think we've shown that we have, I think, a really strong bus network, and we carry many bus passengers in the region, by far the most. But we also want to make sure that, again, for all the different regional providers, that there's an opportunity for them to join us. But I can't say that I know exactly how that's going to go. We're going to, again, try to be the best partner we can, but this is very early in the process. And that's why I said this is still looking internally before we start really talking about it more broadly with the public. And so that's why this is such a formative time, so that we can make sure we're presenting the best that we can.
Okay, well, thanks. One of my comments was based on the answer to that question. But so first of all, I want to say that I love this presentation. I love what you did since July with presenting this to us. So I think this is great. So here are my comments. I personally like the square shape on the customer side rather than a vertical. I suppose I get used to it. When I saw some of the other example prototypes from other regional systems, I kind of went, oh, no, no, no. But it's just my own personal view. I do prefer light type on dark background. That is definitely works better. I hate to see that changed unless it was necessary. That's one. Two, well, if you had other agencies, it would be different shading. I just a slightly different shading so that you could see, it could be the same color. It doesn't matter, but slightly different shading. The next one is, to me, when I look at these, the customer side actually starts higher than the operator beacon side. And so I wonder how far a rider has to walk away from the flag in order to be able to read it. Just a thought I had for you to consider. And here, the last one I have for right now is, do you really need the word metro here? Because I'm looking at the metro rail thing, and you're not saying it there, but you're saying it on the bus sign. So I wondered about if you wanted to make that even more consistent, just have the M. It's just another thought.
Yeah, thank you. Those are all really great points, and I think it really speaks to how much how important it is to be able to look at these in real life. And so, would love to work with Cole and with the group to find a time where we can show you kind of as we evolve these designs, a chance for you to check them out, because I think the size, the clarity, the readability is just so much such a better experience when you're doing it in person than versus on the screen. I'm glad we're able to introduce them to you tonight this way, but I think that you'll be able to see them clearer and even be able to provide better feedback when we're in person.
Thanks. I realized my list was too short. So one of the things that when I look at the flag you have there with 7 lines on it, I really think having some way to know which ones are only operate during rush hours or school hours would be helpful. I know we never really had that on a flag, but I have pre-WMATA maps from the 60s that very glaringly show which ones are rush hours and which ones are not. So I was standing at a stop where there's 6 lines and only 2 of them actually run all day. So I don't know if there's any way to indicate that. Maybe just a slightly different shading in the letters. I don't really know about that. And I think there was one more. Let me see. Oh, well, I'll send this to you. The order of the lines on the sign. That was a big one. The ones that are the main ones, I think, especially the D routes, in some cases ought to precede the C routes. And I gave you some examples. So I'll send that in an email. But so thanks for listening.
No, those are appreciate it, and I can put my email into this chat so you can send it directly. I think it's a really interesting question. Basically, kind of what's the right level of information to provide on the stop? What is the information that people need to find when they're standing there? What's the information that is actually perhaps more up to date and accurate elsewhere? So, for example, service frequency on your real-time information provided by an app or a screen is updated instantaneously, whereas this flag might have been installed several years ago. Right now, we're showing, again, the most streamlined version of the information. How much we increase is kind of part of the future discussion, but there certainly are costs to that. It is going to make it more difficult to read, both from kind of that cognitive comprehension perspective, but also just from an actual readability perspective, adding more elements. It's also going to introduce potential quality control concerns, because just the more information you put on, the more things change, the more you have to make sure that they stay up to date. So keeping things simple can also protect against kind of any errors or things that, again, are changing more frequently. So this is part of, again, the future discussion. And I think the best thing we can do at this juncture is to confirm that the general kind of form factor is working for people, that the general kind of presentation is working. And then within those kind of, we'll call them bounds, we can make sure that we're presenting the best information possible. But those are all great points. And yeah, let's we can move to the next person if there's more.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a question for you, Teddy. What is your timeline? I think I heard you say a couple of times, like being able to physically have the RAC put hands on these and like see them in person. I know we'll be together in person for our January meeting again, but does that fit with your timeline, or is that a little bit too late?
I would say that right now we would probably like to be able to talk to you sooner. I think that just helps us because it gives us more time to include your good ideas. So I think that if we could do it sooner, that'd be best. And we are going to continue making more prototypes, and depending on when we can arrange the visit with you guys, again, if that's later this month or if it's in December, we might even have some new things to show.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll talk to John and we'll see if we can't figure something out before that. But Alex.
Just real quick, I wanted to bring up something that I noticed is that the word like bus or bus stop no longer is on this sign. And I'm not necessarily sure that's an issue, but I at least kind of wanted to bring it up because like in previous versions, it would say Metro bus. And in like cities across the world, like one example is Paris, it just very big word at the top of the thing. It just says bus that you can see from like very far. I'm wondering if that's like something we might want to consider, just because for people who maybe aren't as familiar with transit or English isn't their first language, and they might not know it like Anacostia or Addison Road is like a destination nearby. If that's something we want to bring back, I just kind of wanted to float the thought. I'm not really sure, but
again, it is something that we are definitely talking about, and actually something if we were in person, we'd have a little response to as well, which is that if you were to flip around and look at the other side, because these are double-sided panels, the reverse side of that Metro beacon actually is a bus icon. And we're playing around with kind of like what makes sense in terms of presenting potentially on the front or the back, neither or both. So we are thinking about how to, again, present that kind of more general, this is a bus stop notification for people. So that is something that we are looking at doing.
all right, good to know. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. I don't see anyone else's hands up. So I'll assume we got everyone, we teased out all these thoughts and ideas and feedback. It seems to me, Teddy, that you guys are on the right track. And now we're just kind of like looking at how do you make slight changes to find that right space. So I think this is a really good spot to be in. So I think thank you to you and your team for getting us this far. And it's a lot of work.
We appreciate you guys as well. And as I said, we are going to have more soon. We're continuing to work on this every day. As I said, we'll be out tomorrow night, actually, seeing how these work and making sure that operators are getting, again, the visibility that they need. And look forward to continuing the conversation.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Teddy. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, we'll move on to the next item on our amended agenda, and it's our annual report committee chair. It's just a really important role for fulfilling what the board expects of the RAC. And it's just kind of leading that charge. I think I would offer that all of us are part of the annual report committee, whether we like it or not, kind of a committee of the whole, but I think we do need someone who's able to kind of lead it and just corral everyone in the right direction and give us marching orders. I would love for us to be able to, repurpose what we've done in the past and push it out. And I think, increase the level of participation in that survey is really important to me as the chair, to make sure that I'm helping assist. It's not going to be out on your own. I'm actually, side tangent, taking a statistics class, and so I know all about z-scores and p-scores for you math junkies out here. So I'm here to help too. It's not you going to be you on your own, and you've got John and Jose and myself and former chairs on the RAC still. And so I'm going to go on a limb and see, do we have anyone who is willing to step up at the gate before we have to get into it? Maybe we could have someone who's done this in the past talk about the experience and what it was like. I don't know, Lucas, if you want to maybe just talk about your experience doing it before.
Yeah, no, I think it was definitely a really good experience. I mean, getting to chair the annual report committee. I mean, especially if you're really into like the details and trying to, read the feedback we have and articulate it into different ways. I think it's not only like a good learning experience, but it's very eye-opening to read some of the feedback that, we get as a group and that some of the folks have chatted with others about. I would definitely say, yeah. I mean, I'd encourage anyone to go for it. I think in terms of the writing itself, it's not going to be like a huge burden. Nobody's asking for like a, 50-page research paper or anything like that. I think as long as everybody here, puts in the groundwork, get some good feedback pieces here and there to contribute to the report, I think it's definitely a very meaningful thing. And it helps you not only learn a lot about what riders think, but it also helps you kind of, get a little more in tune with, Metro as a service. So I would definitely encourage you to go for it if you're kind of on the fence. So
I think the writing part is probably the most daunting piece of this. I'll say there are some new technologies out there to assist with making that easier. And it also is helpful that we have had two, the last few reports we've had have been really great reports. And those are easy for some of these tools to pull from, to say this is the style of what we need, and really get you going in a great way. I think those are also there to help. And I'm always here to help too. Like, I think I've used this a lot in my day job too, so I'm happy to provide some of that guidance as well.
And don't forget, you do have paid staff. So I've been pretty hands off with the last several annual reports because the folks who have done it have done a bang up job. But feel free to also lean on myself and Jose and our other colleagues. We recognize that y'all are volunteers.
Thomas, did your hand pop up? You want to say
Yeah.
something?
I would personally be happy to offer my services for this role. I'm still a college student, but I think it would be good experience for me. Especially I'm like studying public policy, and I think this would be great experience to sort of work on like an outreach project, and yeah.
I think that's a great opportunity, and also something you could probably maybe take back to school with you, because it's all one of the benefits of it. It's all public. So I would do. I'm in a course to get my MBA now, and I would love to be able to do it, but I just don't have the capacity to do it. But I will be here to help you along the way. And so, you never know what you'll be able to do with it. I think we really appreciate you stepping up. And so, in the interest of time, I'm just going to go ahead and say that Thomas is our annual report committee chair. I'm going to nominate him and move that we confirm him by acclamation. Great, done. Thank you very much, Thomas. I'll set up some time for us to just chat offline with John here in the next couple of weeks, so we can get you up and going. So we can start our data collection. That's the first big piece. Up next, is there any other new business for the RAC? John.
So just a reminder, and Cole, you mentioned it prior to the meeting, that several of you, your terms are ending at the end of December. I've emailed you, several of you have gotten back to me. So please let me know if you're interested in continuing. And hopefully by next week, I can let you all know what seats we think we're going to have open, and you can sort of work with your networks in terms of, if we need additional applications to sort of get a good pool of candidates, I can let you know. So I hope to have everything wrapped up, into the board by December. So thank you in advance for your support.
Wonderful. I don't have anything else. I think our next meeting is December 3rd. That'll be our last week. Oh, sorry, Eli, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a question about the folks whose term is ending, and I emailed you this, but might as well ask here. Is there anything we need to submit if we're or any application or anything like that, or would kind of our previous application kind of still stands?
I think it still stands. I and you did send me this question. I think I need to check with your appointing board members to see if they need any information, because they're the ones actually making the decision. So I will have to ask them and then get back to you.
I would add, if you've moved, make sure you communicate that to John, just so we make sure that we're maintaining the geographic diversity that our bylaws require. If you're still in the same jurisdiction, that's fine. But if you've moved jurisdictions, even in midterm, we need to make sure that that's communicated back to John so we can make adjustments accordingly.
And I guess congruent with that, like if your usage of Metro has changed dramatically, you had a job change, etc. In addition to maybe a residence, in addition to or opposed to like a residence change, let us know. But otherwise, I'm going to see what the board members want out of you.
All right. I don't have anything else for folks tonight. If there's things that you want to talk about in the next couple of months, please send them to me or John or Jose. Please send them via email to us so we can make sure that we are talking about things that are relevant to us and to riders, and that we are covering things that you want to be discussed. And we can bring the people before us that are informed and can give us some of the background there. But I do really appreciate you all for joining tonight. I really appreciate that discussion on the bus flags, a real good example of the work that the RAC can do to really impact changes that millions of riders will see and experience over the next decade. So thanks for being involved in the conversation and sharing your thoughts and taking the time to be here tonight. If there's nothing else, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second, and no objections. So we will adjourn this meeting here at 7:34. Thank you all so much, and we will see you on December 3rd, virtually.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
All right.
Thank you all so
Everyone.
much.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Hey.